Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special live edition of Terrace Talk this weekend. Norwich City travelling north tomorrow to face Blackburn Rovers at Ewood Park, the Championship's top scorers, and we'll ask Ryan all about that in a little while. Delighted to be joined by Billy Pointer, Norwich City fan, and Ryan Hildred from Rovers Chat and Blackburn Rovers fan as well. Billy, how are you doing? I'd imagine your week looks a lot brighter after those two wins against Sheffield Wednesday and Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, it's a lovely beginning to the week. So, well, looking forward to the weekend. I reckon it'll be a goal fest.
now you've said that, it's going to be 0-0, isn't it? So that's kind of the curse you've put it. Ryan, yeah. How are you? How are things looking from a Blackburn Rovers perspective at the moment?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. It's the end of a long week at work, so looking forward to the football. From a Rovers perspective, yeah, looking okay. A couple of results that could have been a bit more positive for us, but you can't complain at 1 defeat in 8 with the injuries that we've had. So no, we're okay. We're good.
Good stuff. Billy, let's start with you then. Let's reflect on the midweek game against Nottingham Forest. 2-1 win. In many ways, did this game feel quite similar to the game that Norwich had the Saturday before against Tony Pulis's Sheffield Wednesday? Obviously the same result, which is the most positive thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, teams like to come to Carrow Road now and just park that bus and put 11 men behind the ball, which we're finding ways of overcoming it and winning the game. So, but obviously Blackburn are not like that, so I reckon it could be a really good game.
I agree. And do you think, I kind of sort of thought after the game, and I thought about the Premier League season last year, and teams would just, for 10 minutes, they'd just slip it into a higher gear, they'd score a goal, and then they would be able to hold on to that lead. We're kind of seeing that Norwich now doing that in the Championship, aren't we? Certainly, obviously, there's a necessity to it because of all the injuries they have currently, but that is kind of what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah, they just seem to put in that last little gear, step up 5-10 minutes, finish the job, and then we're home and dry, 3 points.
Ryan, let's talk about your game in midweek. A 1-0 defeat to Bristol City. How do you kind of reflect on that? Blackburn obviously sitting 10th in the table. It was your first defeat in 5. So results have been fairly 8. Yeah, but results have been fairly positive then. So that must have been fairly disappointing.
Yeah, it was a strange one on Wednesday night because actually as a performance, it was fairly okay. It was quite controlled. We had to be quite patient. Bristol City are clearly up there for a reason, and it all hinges on one goal. And they bring on Jeju, and he changes the game for them. In the last 15 minutes, really gave us something different to think about. And had we won that game 1-0, you're saying, oh, what a good measured performance from Rovers to break down Bristol City. It went the other way, and there's a slight overreaction in our fan base. So no, we're not panicking. 1 defeat in 8's okay. Bristol City are a decent side, but there is still a little stigma with Rovers, which is we're not beating the sides in the top 6, and we're not beating those to make that push into the top 6. So still a little niggle there amongst the fan base. But yeah, it was an okay performance on Wednesday.
That was what I was going to ask you about expectation, because what is it like amongst supporters? Because I know from the outside there are people maybe looking at Blackburn and looking at the squad they're assembling over the summer and saying they probably had a fairly decent chance at a top 6 push. Is that been the expectation from the fans and from within the club, or because it seems to have been sort of a few years of maybe quiet improvement under Tony Mowbray?
Yeah, it's undoubtedly the best squad that we've had since being relegated from the Premier League. We've got strength in depth all over in the positions now, maybe just a centre-back short. Got Bradley Dack and Lewis Travis to come back from injury at some point as well. So I think there is an expectation there that we've got to use that squad and do something. I still think there is an undertone, though, of is it a step too far, particularly when we're punching against squads like Norwich's, like Watford's, for example. But I think the real fear actually is we've got to make a real good push for promotion this season and try and get promoted, because our contract situation on some of our players is quite disturbing, actually. There's quite a few who are out of contract in the summer, can start talking to clubs in January, and it really could start to unravel what Mowbray's done. So I think there's an expectation, but it's brought about through fear rather than if you see what I mean.
Absolutely. Billy, I'm going to ask you quite a philosophical question now about the season as a whole so far, from Norwich City's perspective? Because obviously it's been well documented. We've obviously documented it quite well. The amount or the sheer amount of injuries that Norwich City have, and judging by Daniel Farke's press conference today, it seems to be easing somewhat. But given that, and given all of the other circumstances, Todd Cantwell and the Emi Buendia episode earlier on in the season, how do you reflect on it so far? How's it been for you? Norwich obviously sit top, so a lot of positivity there, but still some people, and I've read this week on social media, that maybe want to see a little bit more from the performances. Do you think that's fair?
No, I think the performances are pretty good. I think we're doing better than I was expecting, to be totally honest, because I was expecting us to lose more players, bring in a few more if we lost them, and then sort of try and hope we get up there. But I think to be top in December, I think that's brilliant.
And especially with the injuries, because I know other sides have got injuries as well. Norwich had 14, didn't they, at the peak of this crisis? So to do that and to still be top of the league and to have several academy players on the bench, Daniel Farke deserves a hell of a lot of credit for that. Oh
yeah, he definitely deserves a lot of credit. But I feel like we're at just about to tip that bridge, because on midweek there was on the bench we had players come back who, like Dow and stuff, who've been out for quite a while. Well, in a few more weeks, you'll then have Krul back. You're getting back to, like, you can pick different players and influence different things.
Is that the exciting aspect for you? The fact that December's a really busy month anyway, and Norwich are obviously top, and they've managed to do that with a lot of injuries. Is the fact that those players are now back and we're seeing this crisis ease slightly? That's got to be the most exciting thing, isn't it, about maybe this team and what they could achieve in the months to come?
Yeah, it's exciting, and because people were worried that we'd have to go out and buy in January if we had that many long-term injuries. But having them come back, it's like having another signing, because we've coped remarkably well without them. And then come back, you can then push forward, and come the end of January, hopefully we're still up there, then you can really push on.
Absolutely. Ryan, you'll like this segue, but January, as Billy referenced, the January transfer window, everyone's after a striker, haven't they? Blackburn have got a free scoring one. Adam Armstrong, 15 goals so far already this season. I think I saw, I don't know if it was on a tweet or on a podcast I listened to, saying that he's projected to, as things stand on his current goal rate, to break the record for goals scored in a single championship season. Talk to us a little bit about him. He's scored, roughly about half of Blackburn's goals this season. That's some threat to have at the top end of the pitch.
It is, and it came at just the right time, actually. So if I take you back a calendar year, Bradley Dack gets injured against Wigan. He's our talisman. He's the one who makes the team tick, and we need someone to step up. And Adam Armstrong did that within 3 or 4 games. He started scoring. His record over this whole calendar year is pretty impressive, actually, Connor. He's done it across both seasons. We now play to his strengths. You know, he's always looking to get in behind. He can dribble with the ball. He can go down either channel. He can hit a shot from range. He's really taken his game to another level, particularly in response to Bradley Dack's injury. And it's been great to see. And I think pace at any level counts for a lot, doesn't it? If you're a quick striker, you're going to cause people problems. And Armstrong's got that in bucket loads. And what I really like about him is he's just such a pleasant person as well. You can see it off the pitch. He's very humble. Doesn't seem like the type of striker that will try and force the move or push for the move. He just knows that he'll keep doing what he's doing at Rovers. And if eventually a team comes and bids for him, then yeah, we'll probably sell him. But he's been great, and he's a real icon within the fan base now. And we're very lucky to have him and grateful to have him.
You've preempted my next question a little bit, but is that the fear that in January? I don't know why West Ham come into my head, but you can fit other teams in, those sort of Premier League teams, maybe sort of lower to bottom half. Who it's said, isn't it, in January that everyone wants that striker who scores goals. Is that the fear from Blackburn fans' perspective, that one of those do actually put something concrete on the table and give Blackburn and Adam Armstrong something to think about?
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing we can rely on is a Premier League club will panic buy a striker in January, and where best to look than the Championship. And if I go back to the contractual situation I was talking about, Adam Armstrong's got 2 years left. If you look at the other strikers in this division, Ivan Toney's only just signed for Brentford. He's on a long contract. So for me, Armstrong looks like fair game to go and test Blackburn's resolve with. You're right. I think West Ham is a club with, they're playing Antonio up front, kind of out of position, but he's doing well there. The other club who could put a cheeky bid in is Newcastle, because Newcastle actually have a 20% sell-on fee, I think it is, on Armstrong. So that's going to help them price-wise in terms of negotiating with Rovers. So there is that fear there. I think Mowbray's been quite open actually in the press about the fact that we haven't got people tied up onto these contracts yet is to do with cash flow, is to do with finances, and we can't make those offers yet. Now, the way to do that is to sell an asset. And if selling Armstrong means we're going to tie everyone else down to a contract and this squad doesn't unravel, that's a tough decision that you've got to take as a club, isn't it? And it just accept the fact that Bradley Dack's coming back. Maybe he can be the one that gets us over the line. But hey, selling the top scorer in the Championship, I am not advocating that for one moment. I'm realistic about what we might need to do to keep going on this keel that we are.
And absolutely, and as Billy will point out, sometimes actually doing that can be for the greater good. And I'll press Billy on that. Talk to us a little bit about Norwich after James Maddison and the fact they've had to shift players as well. Tell Ryan a little bit about that, because sometimes it can actually work in a team's favour in terms of on the pitch and the way the team is structured.
Yeah, the way he was just talking, it was like literally ringing bells of how the Maddison situation was exactly for Norwich, but in a money flow something. But yeah, when you lose him, it's gut-wrenching, and it's not very nice seeing him play for someone else. But to see what his money then did for Norwich, it was a brilliant move.
And it was for all parties as well, wasn't it? Because Norwich did have that hole. And I guess that comes onto quite a pertinent question from Norwich City's perspective, Billy, which is about this upcoming January window. We obviously saw all the uncertainty and how unsettled it made sort of key Norwich City players, Emi Buendia and Todd Cantwell perhaps being the best example. They were both dropped at Bournemouth because Daniel Farke didn't necessarily like what he saw in training in response to the speculation. The fact Norwich have got another month of that coming up, how worried are you about that? Or is it a bit better for Norwich City now because they're at the top of the league and their negotiating position in terms of maybe saying to these players, look, in 6 months' time, you might be back in the Premier League. You can almost see the Premier League. Does that change things, or is it still going to be a fairly uncertain month, do you think?
I think with being top, and there's a slight gap at the minute, Norwich hold the cards because you can then say to them, say, for instance, come January, we're 6 or 9 points clear. You can then say, look, you can see what we're aiming to do. We're now 9 points clear. Stick with us, and you could have a medal and Premiership football come June, July.
Yeah, I think for me it depends who comes in, doesn't it? Because I know that not from anywhere credible as we have to stress, but I know some Arsenal fans have been talking about Emi Buendia, and if a club like, maybe not necessarily Arsenal in this situation, but one of the Premier League top sides come in for, let's say, an Emi Buendia, then that probably makes it harder for Norwich to hold on to someone as, say, maybe a Fulham, for example.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the way how he runs his job, he's fully in control, and he'll only let them go if the needs suit Norwich.
Absolutely. Ryan, there's a few Norwich City links this weekend. Blackburn have a sort of contingent of former Norwich City players, and obviously one current one, which we'll come on to in a moment. But Bradley Johnson, Elliot Bennett, Danny Ayala, it's they're kind of group of players that fall into the experienced Championship player category. How have those three been getting on at Blackburn? I know Norwich fans like to keep up with how their former players are doing. Bradley Johnson in particular was very popular here. Bennett as well, obviously involved in a or was played for Norwich in the Premier League. He signed after the promotion winning season, if memory serves. So how are they getting on at Ewood Park?
Yeah, so if we start with Bradley Johnson, he's had a much improved season compared to last season. I think, he'd be the first to admit that he didn't really hit the levels that I think he's used to at this level, and, was probably outshone by the likes of Lewis Travis and others in that central midfield area. But in the absence of Travis, Johnson shone, and he got Player of the Month, I think it was for October. Did really well, chipped in with some goals. Could have been September he got it. And has become a really important part of our centre midfield. He's physical, he's strong, all this, good in the air, and a real leader and some experience in quite a young squad for us. So he's shown himself to be an important player this season, and we have missed him when he's not played. Elliot Bennett, unfortunately, he's become a bit of a club legend for us, actually. He's been at us 5 years now, been down to League One with us, really stuck by us and really active on social media and things like that, and done some good off the pitch stuff. He's been injured for the last few games, a pretty bad one. I think it's his foot or something. So he's been out for a few weeks. We've not seen him, and we actually could have done with him because we had a bit of a right back crisis that he could have filled in with. But we love Elliot Bennett, but he's probably coming to the point now where if we are thinking top six, if we are thinking promotion, he's probably going to play less than he has done when he comes back. Daniel Ayala, again, not a player we've seen too much of. He started next to Lenihan, played a couple of games. Watford really hurt us in the first half when Ayala played, and not a good game from Ayala in that perspective. He got an injury, came back on Saturday against Brentford. Lenihan got sent off. Scott Wharton got injured. Ayala comes on as a sub, and I must say I was absolutely thoroughly impressed with Ayala in that game. Leader, really helped 10 men get that point against Brentford and really showed his class and his worth to the team. So I think that game against Brentford on Saturday is probably the one where he's won the hearts and minds of the Rovers fans, and he did well. And it's all strength in depth, isn't it? You know, when Lenihan's getting sent off, when Wharton's getting injured, to have someone like Ayala there, that's the difference.
Yeah, it is absolutely, particularly as you said there. If you've got a few young lads around us, again, Norwich will point out, and that leads me to ask about someone we had a chat about it was pre-season, wasn't it? I think probably just maybe slightly into the season. I know Edward Ivans, who's watching on Facebook, has asked about it as well. Tom Tribal, how's he started life for Blackburn Rovers? Because I know there were some Norwich fans that were maybe a little bit concerned to see him move on to a team that potentially could be still promotion/playoff rivals.
Yeah, he's done okay. And Connor, I'm going to, do a little tip to your footballing knowledge. He's done everything that you predicted him to be. So he's come in and put those no frills performances in. You know, he's tidy, knocks the ball about, gets stuck in where he needs to. But, he's just sitting in that midfield area, really. And it's the likes of Joe Rothwell and others, Harvey Elliott, who are breaking forward and doing the good parts in an attacking sense. But he's been all right, and he's been in and out of the midfield as we've rotated it. So, yeah, he's played his part, and I expect him to play a big part in this squad going forward. You know, he's proved himself to be a great squad player.
And, of course, ineligible this weekend. I think for Norwich, the perfect situation, and I asked Billy about this, is probably Norwich get promoted and then Blackburn like Tom Tribal enough that they sign him permanently. That's probably the ideal case for all parties, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think when he went, I thought he was really good for us in the Championship. So I was a bit concerned when we got rid of him, knowing that we're going back to the Championship. But since we've had Skip, he's amazing.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Ollie Skip a bit more, because I put a bit of a tweet out after the Forest game and sort of spoke about how much he's added to his game only in the opening 16, 17 games of the season. He's really impressed. He's played a lot of games of football this season, which is hard to do as a loanee. I mean, I know he's played bits and bobs for Spurs and their first team, but this is really his first sort of run of football, particularly in the Championship, which is a fairly unforgiving division anyway. How good has he been this season? Can you put into words how good he's been so far for such a young man who with such a lack of experience?
Yeah, for someone with such lack of experience, he's come on the right, blown us away. And I think there's a lot of Spurs fans who are hoping that he comes back and they play him, but who knows? Absolutely.
I've got an Alexa in my room, and someone's trying to contact me on that. Hence anything you might hear in the background. But hopefully that's sorted now. Technology, that's the perks of working from home. Ryan, let's come to you. I want to ask you a bit about Tony Mowbray. He's obviously got connections with Ipswich Town, so that doesn't, as you will know, make him the most popular man in Norfolk. But I think more widely, there's probably a perception of him as fitting into the category of these sort of experienced managers that have been around a little while and maybe don't play the most attractive of football. Maybe you could dispel that myth for us. Tell us a bit about how Tony Mowbray sets up his Blackburn Rovers team. I mean, you scored a lot of goals, so that kind of helps, I guess, dispel that myth anyway.
Yeah, the myth is completely wrong, and I get it because he's a northern bloke and he's a very plainly spoken northern bloke, so I get why people would think that. But absolutely, Rovers play a really good possession-based attacking style of football, and we've signed about 5 defenders in the 4 years that Mowbray's been at Rovers, or nearly 4 years, and about 20 midfielders and attackers. So that shows you where Mowbray's priorities lie. You know, he wants the ball down, he wants us to play football, he wants to score goals, and as you say, Connor, we've scored a lot of them this season. Yeah, he likes to change the formation a little bit. So we've gone 4-3-3 this season, but we do also do the box formation, as it's called, with the 4-2-2-2. And before Bradley Dack got injured, we were a bit more big man, little man, with Dack playing off Danny Graham. So he can mix it up in that attacking area. Him as a manager, he manages via a really good team ethic and a work ethic, and he does his due diligence on players. So if they don't fit the profile that Mowbray wants, if they don't fit into the squad that he wants to build, then he won't sign them. And I think you've seen that from Rovers this season. There's been a real good ethic in the team. We've had players coming off the bench who are making contributions. We've had the performance against Brentford where you've got Aloni and Daniel Ayala. You've got Jacob Davenport, who's only played a couple of times this season. You've got a midfielder that's only played a couple of times, filling in at right back, all putting in stellar performances. And then when that final whistle went, the relief on their face, how much it meant to them. This is all stuff that I think comes from Mowbray. That's what he tries to do as a manager. It's that work ethic, team spirit. That's how he does it. And I think he's really imprinted his style this season with that possession. I think the criticism of Mowbray, if there is one, is it's quite astounding, actually. He was a brilliant defender in two really good defensive lineups for Middlesbrough and for Ipswich. And there are times when it doesn't seem like we can defend. His first thought is attack in his possession. So that's the only thing. I think over the years, there are games where you would just like us to shore it up and get the 1-0 win or whatever. But, you know, we've got no complaints. He's saved our club, really. When he took it over after Owen Coyle, we were in dire straits, real dire straits. He's weeded that squad out. Crucially, we got promotion at the first time of asking. You know, look at Ipswich, look at Sunderland, teams like that. We came back at the first time of asking, and now we're thinking about playoffs after 3 seasons back. So he's done a fantastic job, and we're really, really happy to have him.
I noticed a little smile on Billy's face there when you said Ipswich, but I won't point him out on it. Ryan, we've mentioned that statistic, haven't we? The most championship goals, 31, which is really quite an incredible statistic. I think the next closest is Bournemouth with 29, 17 games. That's pretty much just under 2 goals a game, pretty much. So why aren't we seeing that sort of translate into points? Is it what you've touched upon there? Is it the defensive efforts? Because on paper, it's 20 goals conceded, which is nowhere near the worst in the league at all.
Yeah, well, we've had some big results in there, which probably mask some of this. So we beat Wickham 5-0. We've had 2 4-0 victories against Coventry and Derby. We've had a 3-0 victory against Preston. You know, that's 4 wins and all of those goals. We've drawn 0-0 at home to Cardiff and at home to Middlesbrough, lost 1-0 at home to Nottingham Forest, lost 1-0 in the midweek. So we've actually had those games within those goals where we've not scored goals. I think why it's not translating is despite all of these goals and despite some of the performances we've had and some of the things that I've said about possession, we saw it on Wednesday night. We're actually at times not a very clinical side. And that sounds really weird to say for a team that scored all those goals. But those games that I pointed out to you, those 0-0s, those 1-0 defeats, we're just not making the right chances. We're not getting in behind. We're not clinical. We're struggling to break down sides that sit back against us. So that's where we're not turning those draws into the wins that we need. But the signs are there. We've got a really fluid attacking lineup, and we are absolutely salivating at where Bradley Dack fits back into this side. We can't wait.
Yeah, well, is there? Let's fill people in. Is there any chance of him returning for tomorrow? Since you've picked him up, I know Norwich City fans will be asking.
I'd love to scare the god out of you, but it's not going to happen. Doncaster Rovers in the FA Cup 3rd round are going to get that benefit. That's the game where it's been pinned for his return. So you're lucky you're not seeing Dack.
Well, there we go, Billy. I know that there's a bit of a saying in these parts, isn't there, along come Norwich, and that would be quite typical if we came back and had an absolute stormer. Billy, how are you feeling about this game? Norwich obviously coming into it on the back of 2 fairly decent wins against defensive sides. They're now going to play, as Ryan outlined there, a side maybe that are going to attack them a little bit more. Is that going to shift, do you think, maybe, if not your expectations, how Daniel Farke will approach the game?
I think he might change it slightly, but I think that it suits Norwich more that a team will come onto us, because if we score more, then we'll win. But we've had a good record at Blackburn. I think, is it last 5 years? We've come out of there with...
Absolutely. And in terms of personnel, you said you think he'll make a few changes. What changes do you see him making to that side?
Possibly Cantwell. Because Cantwell he'll win you. He reminds me of Jack Grealish, where he'll win you a foul and slow the game to suit the way you want the game in your control.
So who are you bringing in for? I've seen a sort of Marco Stiepermann maybe come under criticism a little bit maybe for his performances. For him, are you dropping Josh Martin back out? How do you see that attack changing with Todd Cantwell coming in?
No, I think he'll drop Stiepermann. I think.
And
he might not, but I just.
Who would you then move into that number 10 role if you obviously got Cantwell, Martin, and Buendia, three quite similar players. So who would be your preference to go into that role behind Timu Pukki?
I'd push Buendia up there.
Interesting. Ryan, what are your sort of expectations for the game tomorrow? It's I think Daniel Farke said in midweek everyone seems to save their best game for playing against Norwich, which is perhaps what maybe deflecting off his team's performances a little bit. Obviously, they're in an injury crisis, but how do you view this game against sort of newly relegated opposition? Is it a good litmus test for you? Is it a good sort of test to see where Blackburn Rovers are in relation to that top 6 race?
Yeah, it's a really good litmus test because we played Watford and Bournemouth already, but both of those away from home. And actually, we acquitted ourselves pretty well in both of those games. Had a lot of possession. We lost 3-2 to Bournemouth and lost 3-1 to Watford. And in the Watford game in particular, we didn't get what we deserved. We missed a penalty in that game as well. With this game at home against Norwich and with what Billy and yourself have said about Norwich maybe coming and attacking, that's going to be very different to what we've seen at Ewood this season, actually. I think Barnsley, weirdly, are the only side that have come to Ewood Park and really tried to play their game against us. So if it is that type of game, Rovers will get a bit of joy as well. And if you've got possession of the football, and we've done a lot of stats on our Rovers chat show as well, the way to win against Rovers is to let us have the ball. And that's statistically been proven for us this season. So if you're going to have a percentage of the possession of the football as well, that could just play into Rovers' hands a little bit as well, particularly if we can get the counter-attack on the go. However, we've got a big miss in Ben Brereton. Key to that counter-attacking style is Brereton and his power and the running that he can do. So we need to bring that back in if we are going to be successful. But yeah, I'm expecting a really good game. I said it before the Brentford game on Saturday. That game ended 2-2. I'm expecting something similar, I think, just two sides that will go for each other.
Absolutely. Billy, I don't remember if or I don't know if you remember, if anyone remembers watching, but I remember Ben Brereton coming to Carrow Road. I think it was Nottingham Forest a few years ago, and coming up against Grant Hanley, and Grant Hanley maybe giving him a bit of a schooling that night. But just on Grant Hanley, I know he got nominated, and obviously he's a player that Blackburn know well. So I'll come to Ryan on him in a moment. But nominated for the Player of the Month award, him and Daniel Farke both missed out. But just on Grant Hanley, since his injury, there seems to have been a real improvement in terms of his performance. It's kind of what we saw maybe at the start of the year in the Premier League, where he kind of did get his way back into the side and looked like maybe the best centre-back option that Norwich had.
Yeah, since he's been back, he's just grown game by game, and he looks so much more confident on the ball now. And he's even dribbling it and passing it before. It just seemed like he would be scared of it. But he's definitely improved more this season than I've ever seen him at Norwich.
And the key for him is keeping him fit, isn't it? Because usually he has a good run of performances and then there's a major injury. So keeping him fit. And then there's also one other point I want to get your thoughts on, which is his threat at set pieces. Because I think in the last two games in particular, we've seen him get on the end of some excellent corners without maybe putting them on target necessarily. Is that the improvement now that Norwich City need to see from him in an offensive sense? Yeah,
from corners we definitely need to. We've got people who can head the ball, so we just need to test them set pieces a lot more.
Absolutely, and if they can add that, then they're going to be some sort of attacking side, aren't they? I think, given everything they have. Ryan, just very quickly, Grant Hanley, how is he remembered by Blackburn fans? I think he's probably gone up in their estimations after his header against Burnley in the FA Cup last season. I don't know if you saw the celebration, but I would imagine Blackburn fans would have enjoyed that if they did.
Yeah, we enjoyed that one. He's really fondly remembered. We still invest in our youth academy, and that's the legacy of Jack Walker. So whenever any player comes through our youth academy, we love them. And Grant Hanley broke into our side at a pretty difficult spell for us. It was just on the way down into the Championship, and he was a real linchpin at a time when we nearly went down in our first season in the Championship and struggled to find our feet a little bit, and Hanley was a real good captain for us, and in the end it just got to the point where we needed to sell him, some of the finances and the point in the career where he was, but yeah, he was a leader. He stuck by us, and he's very fondly remembered as one of our own, so it's written in the stars, isn't it, that he's going to score a header tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, from Norwich City's perspective, let's all hope so. But obviously, Ryan, you won't be home for that. This the time of the show, we're live this week. So if you are watching this now, do drop in your score predictions, and unless you're obviously watching afterwards, in which case feel free to put them in the comments. But we'll try and flick through some on screen if we can. I'll come to the gents now. Billy, how do you see this game going for Norwich City? As Ryan said, there are two sides that like to keep the ball. Blackburn score a lot of goals. Norwich maybe haven't scored as many goals as perhaps people associated with the title-winning side 2 years ago. It sets up to be quite an interesting game, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 3-2, I think.
3-2 Norwich?
Yeah, 3-2 Norwich, yeah.
And in terms of the game and the dynamic of the game, how do you see that panning out?
I can possibly see us going behind and coming from behind again, because we seem to have a lot of the ball, and then someone nicks a goal against a run the play, and then we seem to up it and then really sort of change our pace. So we're a lot more quicker, and then that's when we seem to create more.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, from your perspective then, just finally, the final word goes to you. How do you see this game panning out from a Blackburn perspective? As Billy and sort of myself have painted over the last half an hour or so, it looks like it's going to be a game where both sides probably look to enjoy possession of the ball.
Yeah, I think so, and I can see us going for a quick start. Actually, we shocked Rovers fans and shocked Brentford on Saturday. Actually, with how quickly we started, we had a couple of chances within the first couple of minutes and really bossed that first half an hour. So I can see us going for something like that again to really try and get the foothold in the game. I think it'll be entertaining. I think Norwich are going to be dangerous. You've got lots of quality. You're top of the league for the reason. And actually, teams do come to Ewood Park and can get some points. Over the last couple of seasons, there's been quite a few draws and the odd defeat here and there. So we're going to have to be on it. I think 2-2 as well. I think it's going to be an attacking game. I think it's going to be fairly open. Both sides are going to be enjoying it. But I think Rovers are possibly, if Ben Brereton was in that side, I'd be thinking a bit more positively. But I just think you need him. So yeah, 2-2.
Interesting stuff. Gents, thank you very much for joining me. Guys, thank you all very much for watching. Really appreciate it. Myself and Dave Freezer will be at Ewood Park tomorrow. You can come and watch the team news live. I think it'll just be me doing that tomorrow. So I'll need your company more than ever as those teams drop. I'm sure you will. Pinkin.com, the place to go for all the latest Norwich City news and views. Make sure you stay safe, and we'll see you again very, very soon.